It's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options.
What's up, hockey fans? This is the Hockey News is the Big Show. I'm Michael Traikos. With me, as always, is Ryan Kennedy, and pleased to have back on the show, Devin Dubnyk. How you doing, Devin?
Good. Nice to be back.
Yeah, and you know what? It's nice to have the kids back at school. I know Ryan and I both got kids off in high school now, and the summertime is officially over, which means we can start turning our attention to training camp in the hockey season. And let's turn our attention to the New Jersey Devils, where Luke Hughes has some maybe Devils fans worried that he still hasn't signed as an extension. And, not the only guy out there this summer that is still due an extension. Mason McTavish, also in Anaheim, looking for to get re-upped. But let's start with Luke Hughes. Ryan, why hasn't Luke Hughes signed? Is there anything that Devils fans should be worried about?
I don't think they should be concerned unless you get into actual training camp and he starts missing time, because he is a young player. And we have seen that, if players don't get that training camp experience, it can lead to a slower year. William Nylander obviously was sort of an extreme example of that years ago in Toronto. But like these RFA deals, they do sometimes take a while because it is such an interesting target that you're trying to hit. A guy's coming off an entry-level contract, and you're really trying to forecast what he's going to be, and it could be a long-term deal. And I wonder, if we're thinking about what Luke Hughes could fetch, I'm looking kind of at the Cale Makar contract when he was coming off his entry-level deal. And I'm not saying Luke Hughes is on the same level as Cale Makar by any stretch of the imagination, but as we've been talking about lately, the cap is going up a lot and has gone up since that contract. So if, Makar got 9, I could see Hughes getting kind of like 8.5 if you're projecting him to be, a real sort of top flight defenseman. So maybe he gets, 8 times 8 or something around that range.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think that cap going up is really what people need to remember, because these numbers, the free agents numbers, they're going to seem big, because especially the longer the contract gets, like that's where it becomes tricky, is that if the team decides they want to sign him long-term, they're obviously that number goes up to attract the player. The team's going to try to get their deal in, the middle of that contract, where now they're getting a steal for them, and they're trying to find that number. Now that number is going to be bigger because the cap's going up. So whatever this contract is, people are going to look at it and say, holy smokes, it's a lot of money. But like you said, the cap when Cale Makar signed his contract compared to now is much different, and it's only going up. So then, if the team doesn't want to necessarily commit the right number to Hughes, then his camp potentially wants to have a shorter bridge, and get him to a point where they have no choice but to then give him 8, 9, 10, whatever that is. And that's kind of the game that you play. You bet on yourself. He's obviously proven to be a good player, is so super young, and is going to continue to get better. But that's just where the in-between is if the team isn't willing to give him what he wants long-term, then he bets on himself on a short-term, and then that long-term at the end of that becomes much bigger than what it would have been. And then that's the gamble for the team, is they take that chance, and then, now they're paying him 10, 11 upwards in that range. So I think as a player, especially with the numbers now, they're going to want a longer term deal. This is, it's guaranteed money. It's guys can get their ticket right now. And then obviously plenty more after, but they can guarantee themselves a big ticket right now. It'd be tough to say no as a young kid to a $50-some million deal.
Yeah, well, let's play the comparable game here, because Ryan mentioned Cale Makar. Another guy that signed more recently was Jake Sanderson, and he signed 8 years at $8.05 million. Owen Power, number 1 overall pick, a number of years ago, signed for 7 years, $8.35 million. So Jake Sanderson's going to be on Team USA, I believe, for the Olympics. A heck of a defenseman. I would say Luke Hughes is in that class. Another guy to kind of keep in mind when we're talking about Hughes is his brother, Jack, who is going to be up for a contract in 5 years. And if I'm the Devils, I'm not sure I want Jack and Luke both being up in 5 years at the same time and then going, hey, instead of Quinn Hughes joining me in New Jersey, maybe those guys join Quinn in Vancouver. So, having them spread out, do you think that'll make a difference?
Yeah, I think that's smart because then all of a sudden it's a package deal, and if you got two guys who are elite level players on a package deal, the balls kind of becomes in their court, and then like you said, there's three of them, which is still mind blowing. That then how good they all are, but then the threat to leave becomes there, and guess what? One guy leaves, they both leave, and that's scary for a team. That's where the negotiating power is there. So if you're the team, I think for sure you want to stagger that. But if you're the player, Luke Hughes might just be asking for a 5-year deal right now at whatever number he wants. Who knows?
Yeah.
New
Jersey's like, why 5?
Yeah, 5's a weird number.
Yeah, how about 4 or 6?
Yeah.
How about Mason McTavish? A year older than Luke Hughes. He's 22, coming off a year where he led the Ducks with 22 goals, second in points with 52. Only one player had more than him. I'm surprised either Mason hasn't been re-signed yet, or with all the rumors around, swirling around him, that he hasn't been traded. Is there a worry, Ryan, that Mason McTavish might be playing for a team other than Anaheim?
Not tremendously. What I do know from talking to a lot of agents is that GM Pat Verbeek is like a hard negotiator, and he's very. What's that?
Kind of like how he was as a player.
Exactly. Yeah, he's the little ball of hate.
Yeah.
And when it comes to an RFA where the team has more control, like he's going to use that control as much as he can. Once a player is a UFA, then obviously you need to sort of change course if you're trying to get somebody to come to Anaheim. But, Verbeek knows the leverage he has right now. So I'm not super surprised that this is still ongoing. But I would caution that, you got to make sure that Mason McTavish is happy because, like you said, he's already putting up a lot of points for the Ducks, and they do need offense. And, he's a great young player. He's mean, right? Like he's the kind of guy that once the Ducks get back to the playoffs, I think he's going to be even more valuable than he is in the regular season. So for me, much like Luke Hughes, I think you want to lock him up as long as you can. And, the Ducks aren't paying guys a lot right now because they've been rebuilding. I think you can go 8.5, even 9 for Mason McTavish. You do also have to consider Leo Carlsson needs a new deal next summer. So there is some planning to do there. But overall, Anaheim's in a really good cap situation right now. And I think they can splurge on McTavish because it's hard to find those kinds of centers.
Yeah, Ryan mentioned Leo Carlsson. You also got Cutter Gauthier there, Devin. A heck of a core that Anaheim is building when you look at their forwards. Is there reason to believe that, if they can keep those three guys obviously playing together, that this team can turn the corner a lot quicker than maybe we originally thought?
Yeah, and I think Kevin Quenneville there as well is going to be good. It's time to turn the corner here for Anaheim. Really, it's like you get teams that are rebuilding, and it's been long enough. Obviously, a lot has changed throughout this, but now they have the pieces to start to be competitive again, to start to compete for that playoff. And so now it's the GM's job to build a team, to build a competitive team. Like I think it's you can only rebuild for so long, and now they have these young players who are ready to take that next step. You got to build the team around them because they're not going to take it the whole way themselves. And so it's the timing, and when obviously the team decides that now is the time to go, then they got to spend their assets, they got to spend their dollars to build a team that's ready to go now. And I think for Anaheim, I think it's been long enough. Now you got these pieces. Now it's time to start to look. You got Quenneville coming in as coach. Now it's time to start to look, okay, let's start to be a playoff team and bring in guys from outside to support this talented young group.
Yeah, like they got Chris Kreider in addition to Joel Quenneville, and a number of veterans went there this summer. So I imagine not having McTavish is going to sort of derail that big jump that they hope to make. And I don't think it's, I don't know if it's too much to say Anaheim's going to be a playoff team, but I think they want to be in that mix for at least the second wild card spot and at least not be a bottom 5 team. One team that's not going to be a bottom 5 team, I can bet, is the Winnipeg Jets. And I don't know if this is a huge splash, but for me, I'm hoping it becomes a huge splash. Them getting Jonathan Toews this summer. He was skating the other day in a Jets jersey, which, it's great to see Jonathan Toews back on the ice after all that he went through. I don't know. Like, Devin, let's start with you. Like, what are the expectations when we're talking about a Toews? Like, I think he's 30? Is he in his 30, like late 30s now?
He's got to be mid. He's got to be mid. My guess is 36.
36, 37, and I'm guessing. Last time he played was the 2022-23 season, 15 goals, 31 points. What can we realistically expect from Mr. Captain Serious there?
Well, it's interesting because I think the contract's kind of perfect for what what he's bringing, because he gets a bunch of money if he does more than expected, but it's kind of created that if he doesn't and he's going to contribute he's a great guy in the dressing room. He knows how to win. Like he knows how to do the right things on the ice. So he's not going to be a detriment to your team. He's going to be an addition to the team. Now, in whatever capacity that is, if it ends up being a lot more than everyone expected, that's great. They're happy to pay him the money. They're happy to pay him those bonuses. If he doesn't, and his age is a little bit of a factor in the time off, well, it's no problem because he's at the right number for that. So it's kind of a perfect scenario. And listen, this is also a guy we're not talking about just an average NHL player that took a year off and is coming back. I mean, Jonathan Toews is a phenom. He's won over and over with Chicago. He's been one of the best players in the league for years and years. Like, this is not just a guy who's coming back. This is Jonathan Toews. So he has the ability to I think, surprise people. And I haven't seen him skate. I don't know. I don't know if his level's there. I don't know if he's lost a step, but mentally, if he's where he needs to be now, again, this is not just your average player. It's Jonathan Toews. So I think that there is a possibility that he comes in and does a whole lot more than people are expecting.
Yeah, and there's so many intangibles that Toews can bring to Winnipeg. To start the season, he'll be important because Adam Lowry is going to be out due to injury, so he can fill that center spot, and then he can move down the lineup once Lowry comes back. Obviously, Mark Scheifele is the number one center, but I think with Toews he can do hard matchups, right? And he's so smart as a player that even if he's not the Toews we knew in his Chicago days, like, he doesn't have to be that anymore. And I think something that we need to consider is when Winnipeg gets to the playoffs and things are they're always going to be a roller coaster, but if things are getting tough, who better to look to than Jonathan Toews, who can be like, guys, I have seen this before. This is all we need to do. And even if he's not the driver himself, that experience and that leadership is going to mean so much to those other Jets who want to get that Stanley Cup ring, of which he has 3 already.
Yeah. Do you think they employ like load management with him? Like, is expecting him to play 82 games, is that even realistic? Or are we talking about, maybe 50 to 70, 50 to 60 is more along the lines of what we expect?
I wouldn't go that low. I think it would just depend on how his body responds. I mean, he missed time for reasons that didn't have to do with injury. So it's not like he's been injury plagued over the last few years and they needed to work on it. I can tell you, my guess is that he certainly doesn't want to miss any time. I'm going to guess he'll tell you he'll play 83 of the 82 games.
Yeah. I
think it's just going to be monitoring, because he has had the time off and he's coming back, just how his body responds to the schedule and the games. And if there's a time that he needs a little bit of time off, I think that's just going to be a conversation between team and player. But he's certainly not a guy who's going to want to or needs to miss a lot.
And don't forget, he'll have the Olympic break.
That's
right.
true.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's not playing for Team Canada. As much as I love Jonathan Toews and what he's done for Team Canada,
Too deep.
probably not in the mix for that team.
Yeah.
All right. So a bit of news this week. The playoff salary cap loophole has now officially been closed. Coming up on the new CBA, which is actually being rolled out immediately. Teams now must be cap compliant with a 20-man roster for the postseason. So, where we've seen this in the past, Nikita Kucherov with the Tampa Bay Lightning sitting out the year, recovering from surgery, comes back for game one. Patrick Kane and the Chicago Blackhawks did this back in, I think, 2015. We saw Vegas do this multiple years with Mark Stone coming off injury. And most recently, Matthew Tkachuk, who after the Four Nations basically sat out the rest of the season and then came back in game one. Panthers used that cap space to go grab Brad Marchand, and the rest is history. So who gets impacted the most, guys, with this new loophole closing? Is it the Vegas Golden Knights? Is it Florida, which, again, the Panthers are going to be without Matthew Tkachuk, it looks like, for at least the first few months of the season? How do you guys see this unfolding?
Well, I think the people that get impacted the most is Trade Center and Trade Central.
We might not see a good trade deadline now.
I think it makes the trade deadline way less interesting because it just, again, those teams have used this almost every year without people really thinking about it. And, now it doesn't exist anymore. So you can't have the guy sit out and then come back. And it makes it really interesting because, I don't have anything in front of me, but if you went back and look not just at the Panthers, but look at the Oilers or look at, because Evander Kane was ready for the start of playoffs. Mm-hmm. But all of the teams, all the winning teams, but not just the winning teams, look at all the teams that are in the playoffs that go far in the playoffs and how many actually, if any, actually dressed a roster that fell within the cap space. And I mean, my guess is that they must have looked at this because if you have 16 teams in the playoffs and none of them fall into that would be a bit not a good look for the NHL if all of a sudden teams can't even dress the right rosters. But it's going to be an interesting thing. You're just not going to see the splashes of the trade deadlines that we have because you always wonder, how does Vegas go get these guys every single year? How does Florida do what they do? And that's exactly how they did it. But I mean, I don't remember what Tampa's roster was the years they won, but it was up over 100 million, I think, was what their playoff roster was when the cap was in the 80s. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a headache for the GMs and the assistant GMs and the money crunchers. I just think it's going to affect those trade deadline deals significantly.
Yeah. And you know what? The capologists for teams, it kind of makes their job easier because they're not like, you can't do the whole, like if you trade for a player, it's no longer going to matter that it's like, oh, we only need to absorb a quarter of his cap hit because there's only a quarter of the season left. And you can only trade for salary once now. You can't do the double thing where one team takes a third of the cap hit and another team takes a third. You can't do that anymore. You can only do it once. So things are just a lot more cut and dry once you get to the playoffs. And so, unfortunately for the capologists, they won't be able to be as creative as they once were, but they won't have to get the big algebra calculators out in order to figure out how much space they have left. I think Florida, they're kind of going to be in trouble in the short term because Tkachuk will come back. And, if you look at right now, they're over the cap. So do they have to lose a body like an actual NHL player in order to be ready for the playoffs? I do also think that we'll see more hockey trades and they'll be earlier in the season to Devin's point about the trade deadline. I think you'll see things a lot earlier because the motivation to hold off until it's less salary is no longer there. I also wonder if we'll see teams trust young players on entry-level deals or kind of minimum deals more. Like if Florida, for example, like Mackie Samoskevich, that's a player that I think the Panthers need to step up this year because they need a guy that's not making much money who can prove that he can be on a line and contribute once they get to the postseason. And it's only that 20-man roster that they can work with under the cap.
Devin, I know you're kind of joking that like the trade deadline gets hurt, but like for players, like when you were a player, were you aware of teams kind of using loopholes like this? And was it something that kind of irked you? Because, the year that Tampa Bay used it with Kucherov, I remember when they beat Carolina, I believe, Dougie Hamilton had some harsh words saying, hey, they're $15 million over the cap. Like it's not fair. Was that kind of in your mind too? Or was it something that you're like, hey, everyone uses it, just some teams use it better?
Yeah, I only really heard about it more towards my last couple of years of just kind of being more aware of it. Like you said, all the way back to 2015, Chicago used it. I don't think that was something that a lot of guys were really aware of or thought about. We don't really think about the salary cap when we're playing. But yeah, I could see the frustration. I remember that was kind of the first time that it was really brought up and guys started to really notice was when Dougie Hamilton said that. And it is frustrating. Like you're supposed to be on the same playing field and they got $15 million, $20 million more in cap space. That's an advantage, a huge advantage.
Yeah.
That really shouldn't be there. And it's just funny, all these new CBAs, right? You come up with a new CBA, there's some big minds out there. There's some genius minds out there. They're always going to find ways around it. And it's like the same thing, as the backdiving contracts before, and those got taken away. And now then it's the salary trading and the 3-team trades and this playoff loophole. And now they've taken that away. They're going to find something else. I don't know what it is. But these numbers guys and the lawyers who study the CBA, there will be loopholes that are found. We just don't know what they are yet.
Lawyers are going to lawyer, man. That's it. That's what they do. Another wrinkle in the new CBA is the dress code officially dead. And, Devin, let's start with you. Big dress code guy, or would you be happy to be playing right now where you could just go on the plane, show up to the rink and kind of like trackies and a hood?
I enjoyed wearing a suit to a game. I didn't like. We did during the COVID times. In San Jose, we did track suits to the rink. I didn't like it. It just doesn't feel. It's already hard enough to go play in front of no fans, and then I don't know. It didn't feel urgent. It didn't feel like it was important. I like the suit thing. I'd be curious to see if teams are allowed to implement their own rules or if that's enforced league wide, because there is a set of rules that the team can enforce themselves. However, if that's a league wide rule, that might go against where the teams that not allowed to enforce a dress code, if that's in the league wide CBA. It can be strongly encouraged that you dress up. You can have, captains and stuff that have been around for a long time. If they think the boys should be in suits, well, then the captain and leadership says, hey, it's suit and ties to games, whether you like it or not. It's not, even though it says we can, this is what we're doing. I like the plane thing. The plane thing was always frustrating. It made no sense. No tie on the plane. It's like wear a suit. So you like a tie matters, but you wear a suit onto the plane that nobody sees you get on, because you drive right to the bottom of the plane. You get on the plane, you climb on the plane, you're in a seat, changing into your comfy stuff that you're going to wear for the flight. Then as the plane's coming down and the seatbelt sign's on, there's turbulence. Everybody's falling around trying to get their suit back on so that you can walk directly onto a bus and go like directly to the hotel for the 30 seconds that people might see you coming off the bus. So, respectable. Obviously, you don't want to have guys dressed as slobs, but I think the planes, the buses for off days, going to practice on the road, practice at home there was never a dress code anyway. Same for pregame skate, but I don't mind it. I do like the professional. There's got to be some sort of professional code, even if it's unwritten now, on how you show up for games. I think it's good. You get some personalities and guys have more options to do what they want. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as it's something nice that looks professional, looks like you're coming to a game, and as extravagant as you want it to be, as long as you look like you're wearing a game outfit, that you're going to a game that matters, that you're ready for, and you're not just showing up in sweatpants and sandals, then let them be.
Yeah, I imagine this freeing up of the dress code, it's just going to encourage people, like you said, to show off their personality. And, we might see tracksuits, but they're probably going to be like $10,000 tracksuits.
Yes.
Ryan, who you think's going to be the guy to watch now that the dress code has been relaxed?
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see some of the guys that are very fashionable already, like a Pasternak or an Austin Matthews. Linus Allmark had some great All-Star game outfits. I remember that. William Nylander. But what I do think this opens things up for is something we've seen in other sports. I think the NBA has done it a lot, where you'll get a guy coming in wearing the jersey for like the other sports team in that city. Like if somebody's going on a playoff run, or they have a new sweater or whatever, they'll rock that coming in. So that it opens it up where maybe you see hockey players wearing like an NFL jersey or a baseball jersey or even a basketball jersey. I don't know, because that's just like, bare arms and everything. But at least opens that up where we could see some fun stuff in that regard. And, the cameras are always checking the guys out when they come in for TV. So there'll be a little room for some sort of cross promotion there.
All right. You mentioned the Leafs and Matthews. He's without his running mate this year, Mitch Marner, officially a Las Vegas Golden Knight. Ryan, you had a chance to talk with Marner's camp for the later, I guess, an upcoming issue. I shouldn't say the latest issue.
Closing it now.
Issue is the yearbook. This is an upcoming issue. Let's start with Marner, because a lot was been made about his time in Toronto and especially how it ended. Apparently his address was doxxed. He was receiving, I don't know if they were death threats, but some uncomfortable run-ins with fans or former fans, I guess you would say, after how things ended again with Toronto in the playoffs. So let's talk to you first. What did you learn about talking with Marner's agent, Darren Ferris?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a tough situation for Marner. What Ferris told me was that, one of the things Marner wants is to win a championship. And he did think he could still do that in Toronto. Obviously, he feels the same way about Vegas. And the Golden Knights have had more success in that sphere the past 5-6 years, as it would be. But also, Marner just had a baby boy. So he has a young family, and, safety and security was something that he considered when, this trade possibility came up and obviously came to fruition with Vegas. So, it is unfortunate that he had to go through, Ferris told me, like, we had to have police out front of his house, like pretty much every year once the Leafs were knocked out of the playoffs. And, it takes a mental toll on Marner, but also his family, not only like his wife, but, his parents, his brother, they all live, in the Toronto area as well. So, he said it made him, mentally stronger. It was very difficult. But now he's resilient and Marner's excited. He said he kind of feels like the old Mitch, like when he first got to Toronto, now that he is settling down in Vegas and getting ready for his first season with the Golden Knights.
Yeah, I always say it's tough to play in Toronto or like a Montreal or even in Edmonton. Like Devin, you obviously played for the Oilers and you've played some big markets, but it's got to be extra hard when you're from that place. Like Marner grew up in Toronto, then plays for Toronto. Like there really was no escape, especially even the off season. How about you? Like during your time in Edmonton or Minnesota, did things ever get real? Like obviously the highs are the highs, but when the lows were coming, was it tough to be in a big market like that?
Tough, yeah, just because you can, I was fortunate. I never had any fan run-ins or anything like that. I will always say people in Edmonton, people in Minnesota, everybody were very, very good to me, away from the rink, all that stuff. But you feel the pressure. It's hard because you know there's a media coverage, the fans care, they're passionate. So without having a run-in, you still feel the pressure. The pressure is there. You can feel it. It affects your day-to-day life. And that's just part of playing in a big market. But listen, obviously going back to the Marner thing, there's a line that's been crossed. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's just the way things are today with the internet and available information and all of that. But let's be honest here. This is a human being. Mitch Marner is a human being. We all are. And I think that 99% of sports fans understand that. Maybe not 99%, but we'll give a high number.
75
of sports fans understand that, and it's okay to be pissed off at him. It's okay to not like him as a player, and you can say something at him on the ice. But when you have a human being who now has a baby, who is starting a family, and is getting threats and needing police at the front of his house, now it's one thing if this is the only place that he can do his job. And he has to get through that because he's making millions of dollars, and it's just something he's got to deal with, and he's got to have security detail and all of this. When you now have a family and you have an option to go play for a really good other team with a lot better weather and people who aren't threatening your family and needing police presence outside of your house, find me somebody who doesn't pack up and go.
Yeah.
See ya. And by the way, the taxes are better too. But
yep.
Find me a person who do, like, because now you're not just, you're soft, you can't deal with the pressure. No, you have brought a child into the world, and you have a young family that you're going to the game and wondering, and you got to have police outside of your house because you don't know. And again, it's not the majority of fans, but when a line's crossed, it's crossed. And you can't live your day-to-day life knowing every season when it comes playoff time, you got to get police out front of your house. Find me one person who's not like, sorry, guys, I love Toronto. I love the Maple Leafs. I wanted to get it done. Unfortunately, we couldn't, but this has crossed the line, and I'm out of here.
This has to affect future free agents, doesn't it?
I would imagine so. I mean, that's always part of Toronto. And I again, you don't want to make it seem like that's Toronto fans, because Toronto's its own beast. Everybody knows that. It's always been like that. So that's not going to change. Some guys love it. Some guys don't. That's what you get. You get treated extremely well in Toronto. You're a god if you're winning. I know the team takes care of the players extremely well. All the equipment manager, all that stuff is first class. So you're going to get that side of it in Toronto. You also know what you sign up for. So it's a unique individual that can go and excel in that time. And it's unfortunate because this is probably one person who crossed the line, or a handful of people that have crossed the line. And that's not the Toronto base of fans. They obviously are passionate and they care, but it doesn't mean that the majority of Toronto fans are psychopaths that are gonna threaten somebody's family because of their play on the ice. But unfortunately, if that becomes something that happens more than once, or to another player, yeah, I mean, guys, it is something that guys think about, because it's, but the team and the league are going to do everything they can to squash that. It's just the day and age that we're in with the internet and all of this stuff, the information that's accessible to find his address, and with AI and being able to send messages and not be able to track. I mean, it's crazy, but when that starts to happen, it's something that's going to cross guys' minds.
Yeah, and you wonder why Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, and Aaron Ekblad chose to re-sign in Florida rather than come to Toronto.
Yeah, golf carts to the rink, and nobody's threatening your family. I can promise you that.
Yeah. All right, so USA Hockey announced its hockey or Hall of Fame inductions today. It's a pretty good class, to say the least. Here, I'm going to read them out. So, photographer Bruce Bennett, who Ryan and I are very familiar with, longtime Getty Images and shot for the NHL, I believe. He's going in. A women's hockey player, Tara Moonsey, and then from the NHL, Scott Gomez, Zach Parise, and Joe Pavelski. I know you've played with Zach Parise, Devin. Having Parise go in, any favorite memories playing with Zach?
Yeah, he's actually a really good friend of mine. He lives about 30 seconds away from me. So our kids are the same age, see him all the time. I coach with him. And he's a great guy. He's Captain America to me. The guy's still in great shape, still looks like he could play. But for me, I mean, he was like the superstar grinder to me. And that wasn't like a saying he's a grinder. It was a saying he's a superstar who had the work ethic every day of a guy who was like clawing to try to be in the league. He worked that hard, like he was trying to keep his job, yet he was a superstar. I always watched him, and like you could go back, a goal could happen and you could run it back 30 seconds. And, he won 3 battles on the wall that just completely outworking a guy that you don't really notice, but it's just the puck battles and the dedication, the time, and just his love for hockey, is still, he lives and breathes hockey now. And he's fortunately for the youth around our area now and in our association, I got to coach with him last year with our oldest boys. They get his coaching, and he brings that exact same dedication and knowledge to the kids, and he's really good with the kids. But watching him develop our group of 10-year-old kids last year was incredible. He just brings that dedication every single day and skill development with these kids, and they're so fortunate to have him here. And it's been great to get to call him a friend. And I think we've become even closer after now, not being at the rink. Not that we weren't close before, but we're probably better friends now post hockey than we were when we were playing.
And you know what? Parise actually has a very interesting legacy apart from his own playing heroics, which is what he meant to Shattuck St. Mary's, the famed prep school in Minnesota. His dad, JP, was running the hockey program when it really started to become something. But if I'm not mistaken, Zach was the one that actually took Sidney Crosby on a tour of the school. Sidney Crosby ended up going to Shattuck's and launching his career from there. And because Sidney Crosby went there, Nathan McKinnon went there afterwards. And then years later, you have Macklin Celebrini going there. So you think about all the superstars that have come out of that program. Maybe none of it happens without a young Zach Parise extolling the virtues of this school that he went to and his dad was running the hockey program at.
Yeah, I believe the rink there is named after his dad, or one of the rinks there. But and that's kind of it's a legendary school, right? But you're right. If he doesn't come in, and there's other guys. I think Stafford, I believe, went there. Did Jonathan Toews go there? I think
Toews went there too,
as well. I mean, the list is crazy when you look at not just NHL players, but like superstar NHL players that go to this school that's 50 minutes outside of the cities in Minnesota, just random private school. And that program is not what it is if that doesn't happen with Parise. It's just the way it is. I'm sure it would be a high-end hockey program. We're in Minnesota. There's a lot of places to go play hockey. And that's the place. And so I don't think that is the case if you don't have Zach Parise and his dad.
Yep.
All right. Listen up, hockey fans. The Big Show is presented by Sticks.com. Why break the bank on sticks when you can get a pro-level composite stick without the pro price tag over at Sticks.com? That is STIX.com. Head over now and gear up. And with that, we go to rapid fire, Ryan's favorite part of the show. Let's get quick here because, this has been a great episode, but we are getting tight on time. All right. Who signs an extension first, guys? Kirill Kaprizov or Connor McDavid?
I'm going to go with McDavid because I feel like Kirill's going to try to wait for that to place his number. But I guess that kind of depends on how long that takes McDavid. I mean, they're both going to get absurd numbers, which they've earned. But I'm going to go with McDavid first.
I'm going to go Kaprizov because I think he can more so dictate his number in Minnesota because they need that star power. Like we know McDavid, he's the best player in the world. But I feel like McDavid could wait longer because he wants to see where Edmonton is at.
McDavid's going to get whatever number he wants. If he wants every single penny that is allowable under the CBA, he's going to get that. If he wants to take a little bit of a cut, he's going to get that. He sets it wherever he wants to set it. Totally. And that'll be up to him.
It feels like McDavid is the easier one. Just give a max term, max dollar, sign on the dotted line. Done. Here's one. We just finished the summer. Devin, what is your summer obsession, or what was your summer obsession when you were a player? Seasons ends, put away the skates and the sticks, what are you reaching for? Is it a book? Is it a baseball bat? What is it?
Golf all day for me. I got a new one this summer, but golf, I love golf. Play it multiple times a week if possible. I'm a member at a course across the street here. It takes me 3 minutes to get to the clubhouse.
Nice.
I love it. I'll do it. Now, my prime window is when it opens before school ends, and right now when the kids go back to school. It's weekdays. I can play any day after the kids are dropped to school. It's like I said, it's 3 minutes from the house. My favorite thing. But this summer, fishing, which I never fished growing up. Very sporadically, didn't know anything about fishing, and my kids have fallen in love with it. I've fallen in love with it. It's to me, it's like the learning process too. I'm learning on the go here. So I never used to like to touch a fish, or everything was kind of foreign and gross to me. Now I had to be thrown in the mix because I can't be grossed out to the kids. So I had to learn how to grab all these fish, and then you start to not care, and baiting the hooks with the worms and the leeches used to always gross me out. Now I don't care. And my middle son, especially Parker, he's 9. Literally all he wants to do is fish. We went up to our cabin this weekend. I can't even tell you the amount of hours that were put into fishing. And we get home. He asked me if we drove back. He asked me if we could fish when we get home. And I'm like, dude, we just fished for 3 straight days and we have to unpack. But I've fallen in love with it too. I don't do much fishing myself. I'm tying lines and putting bait on hooks, but it's incredible here in Minnesota.
What do you guys fish for over there?
They love their largemouth bass. They're fun to catch, and they fight like heck. So they love those. They really want to catch pike. We haven't really tried yet. And then they have these little sunfish that are kind of they're called bluegills. They're kind of like disc shaped. They're not as fun. They're now that they're catching. They used to love catching anything. Now that they're catching a lot, it's the bass that get them excited. And then the walleye in the bigger lakes are they're a little more finicky. You have to know how to fish for them a little more. Whereas if you go to the right spot, the bass are a little easier to catch. But if you know what you're doing, you can catch a lot more.
Nice. Ryan, are you a big fisherman or?
I fished a little bit when I was younger. I went ice fishing a couple of times. I would say 5-6 years ago, which was super fun. Except me and my friends were listening to music the whole time.
There's
so
not a
we
whole
didn't
lot of
catch
fishing when
anything.
you're ice fishing. It seems
We were
like
the
That's what
loudest
fishing is.
Yeah, we were the loudest ice fishers possible. So we had no success, but we had a ton of fun.
If you've ever tried to ice fish without doing that, without the beers and the music and everything, it sucks. So
Yeah, it'd be like
you're just sitting on ice.
you're literally sitting there staring at a line, waiting for it to go doot doot, and then
exactly.
you pull it up with your hands,
Staring
and
at a
there's a
tip
fish
up.
there.
All right, it's been a while since you were a rookie, Devin, but NHL rookie tournaments, yay or nay?
I think yay. I think it's an opportunity for, it's maybe they could keep the top guys out of it, especially if it's a guy that's going to be competing for a spot on the team, or he's going to be on the team. You don't need to have him in there with a bunch of guys running around where he might get hurt. So I think it should be up to the team if they decide if a kid goes or not. But I think it's a good showcase, especially for a lot of kids who are maybe undrafted. It's a place for them to get invited to, get their names and faces onto teams' radars, not just the team that they go with, but also other teams they could impress and not go. They might not have a chance to get invited to a main camp, but they get invited to a wider pool of rookies and they go out and impress. And it just opens doors and opportunities, I think, for more kids to go and just have an opportunity to open some eyes and get on the radar. But I think keeping the possible NHL rostered players out of there isn't a bad idea either.
I'm a yay on this because I love to see the kids early on. But I will say, if you're a team that doesn't have any draft picks, just skip that year. I've seen some prospect teams where there's 3 or 4 drafted players and the rest are free agent invites. And maybe it's because they had a lot of NCAA kids that year, or European kids that weren't coming over. But it's none of these guys are ever going to play for you. Just take the year off. Who are we even watching here?
Yeah, you're doing
that'll
your
bring up
favors.
3 guys who just fight, and then they just all they do is just trying to goon the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's an interesting one. Pakistan's men's team won the Division 3 of the, I don't even know what this is, LATAM Cup.
The Latam Cup.
Okay. Well, the women's team won bronze in Division 2 in their debut. Hey, man, Pakistan winning anything in hockey has got to be noteworthy. So how cool is it to see a traditional hockey country, growing the game. And, could we see synthetic ice rinks really help grow the hockey in these hotter climate countries?
Yeah. So that whole tournament is like non-traditional countries that participate. It happens down in Florida. It's been going on for a few years.
Pakistan wasn't beating Canada in this thing.
No, exactly. Yeah. They might have been playing like Venezuela or like Jamaica, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really cool tournament. And yeah, the synthetic ice thing, 100%. I know Anthony Duclair just paid for a synthetic ice sheet down in Florida. I think it's outdoors too, but yeah, getting as many people involved in hockey and sort of meeting them where they are at in terms of like climate. It's a great way to introduce people to the sport. Even if they never end up playing, they might end up watching.
Yeah, the synthetic ice, and then also even creating a inline like roller hockey programs, and just getting this people learning to skate and learning the sport in general with the hotter climates. Obviously, you need the ice part of it to transfer over to the rink, but just creating a program that introduces people to the game, I think, is really cool. I mean, let's be honest, it's impressive that they can even put a team together where there's enough players to have a roster, and then not only that, and go and succeed. So it's nice. It's nice to see the game growing.
All right, last two questions here. Aside from Pittsburgh, you can't say the Penguins. Team that you associate Jaromir Jagr with when you're talking about some of his more memorable moments?
I'm going to go with the Rangers. And this is more for me because it's when I came in the league, but I think of him in Dallas as well. Just not for moments, but for me going up against him, because I was, it's Jaromir Jagr. I was going against Dallas. You see Jagr on the board. I'm like, I'm 23 years old. I'm like, oh boy, it's Jaromir Jagr. So that's kind of where the Dallas things comes in for me. But if it's always Pittsburgh, but if I'm not picturing Pittsburgh, I'm picturing him in a Rangers jersey.
Yeah, I'll go Rangers because he did win the Pearson. I think it was 05-06. He had 123 points for New York. So if not Pittsburgh, I would go Rangers as well.
Yeah, I'm going Florida just because I once tried to interview him after a morning skate in Florida, and he said, no, it's my birthday, so I'm not talking to you.
Hey, at least he had a reason.
Jeez.
True.
He didn't just say no. It was his birthday.
Yeah.
All right, last question, guys. Best backup goalie in the NHL. Devin, let's start with you.
I'm going to go with two, probably Peter Kochetkov or Kevin Lankinen. And I'm sure I'm missing on guys, but I think they're two guys who, potential starter ability if a guy goes down. I think if you go actual just backup, there's other guys that probably fill that role better. But I think those are two guys who are really high-end backups where if you lost a guy, could take over without much of a dip.
Nice. I'm going to go with Jake Allen. To me, the commensurate backup, and a guy who, if you needed him to pick up games, he certainly could. He actually had one of the best goals saved above expected in the whole NHL last year. He got into 31 games, which certainly helps. But Jake Allen just does his business. He's like the perfect backup.
Yeah, and he's a perfect backup as well to maybe a younger goalie that is your starter, because he's your guy. He's going to make him feel completely comfortable. He's a security blanket. He's an older veteran guy, but he's not threatening you to take your job. So it gives that younger goalie the relief of the pressure, knowing that he's there if you slip up, but he's not sitting there at his age and where he's at. He's not going to be behind closed doors gunning to steal games from you. So he's kind of that perfect backup role.
All right, I'm going Eric Comrie, more so for his personality than his stats. Then again, he did spell off Connor Hellebuck enough last season to get the Hart Trophy. So listen up. For Devin Dubnyk and Ryan Kennedy, I'm Michael Traikos. This was the Hockey News' Big Show. We're going to see you guys next week. All right, thanks again for listening.